Hi, welcome to today's show. I'm Chisomo, your host from It Starts with a Dream. This is a channel all about designing your life and deciding your life, deciding what you would like and making it happen. Today, I'm going to be talking about hard things that happen to us. These may be traumatic things. These might be painful things, especially things that happen in our childhood, and the way they may affect us now without us realizing. Subconsciously, we find ourselves doing certain things, certain patterns, certain, you know, we might want to call it bad habits, or but doing things that don't help us really, and they keep us stuck, and they build resistance to the goals that we're working on, to the things that we're trying to change in our lives. And sometimes people will say, talk about like limiting beliefs or resistance or blocks, um, and whatever the phrasing might be, but relating it back to something painful that's happened in your life, probably in your childhood, but maybe in your last 10 years, 5 years, and how it is affecting you. So I wanted to talk about that because this is about designing your life and deciding what you want and going after your dreams. But you, it sounds very simple, doesn't it? And you get to a point where you've created the vision, you know what you want, you've written it down, maybe you've made your dream board, your vision board, um, and then you start creating the plans, and then you find yourself getting stuck. You're not following through. You know exactly what you want to do, and time comes to do it, and you find yourself cleaning the house. I don't know, watching YouTube, wasting time on Instagram, whatever it is, and you're just avoiding it. You're completely avoiding that thing, and there's something going on. There's something deep is going on, and that is the point where I've come to where I now like, what's going on? Let me deep down. Let me go deeper. Let me see. I think I didn't. I underplayed the importance of mindset early on my journey, and I really thought it was just about like making a plan and having strategy and learning stuff. So like taking all these courses, and then I'd find that I wouldn't follow through on what they're saying, and then I'd like make an excuse of why, like, oh, okay, I can't do that because blah 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 blah. Or all right, I know they're teaching that and they're saying we should do that, but like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something else instead. And I would not follow through, basically. And you might find yourself in the same boat where you have these goals, you have the plans, and then you're not doing the things you set out to do. And then you might be like, why am I not doing it? And then you start hearing about limited beliefs and blocks and resistance and things like that. So that's the point I have been in, where I like really want to now uncover what's going on, go deeper, and actually start to heal from those things. And I use the word heal, and like you might find that as a funny word, and um, but I see healing as basically processing it and not letting that thing affect you anymore. That's what I mean by heal. And I'm a Christian, so I also use heal, and it also covers spiritual things because I do feel like that some of that is that's a spiritual thing. The things that affect our emotions and affect our soul, if you want to call it, the inside stuff. I see that as a spiritual thing. But if you don't believe in a soul or a spirit or things like that, um, however you want to call it, you know that there's stuff that brings up certain emotions, and it's it's dealing with that, with those things, so they don't affect you in that same way, so they don't bring up all those negative emotions and affect you and stop you from going after your dreams. So I did a session called an RMR session, and it's a Christian based um session, rapid mindset renewal. And there are non-Christian ones out there, and there are like spiritual versions of that. And I've heard, I've heard of different things. And it's basically a session where you're with a practitioner, whether it's in person, online, and you are looking at something painful that's happened, or traumatic, if that's a word that you might want to use. And you're uncovering and going deeper, seeing what happened, how it made you feel, and how those patterns or ways of thinking are affecting you now. So there was a lot of things I covered in my RML session. It was almost like my processing my whole life in 2 hours. It was insane. That was like my first one. And it was so powerful and it was so helpful. But I'm just going to talk about one thing. So at the start of the session, the lady was like, you might have some odd things you need to forgive. There might be some weird things you might forgive. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm thinking about people. And then she gave an example. There was a woman who had to forgive the FDA for being overweight and overeating, because basically, controversial, but I don't think the FDA or the NHS give good health advice. And neither did that lady, obviously. So whatever the advice it told her had led to her not being healthy, probably eating too much carbs and probably eating low fat and not enough protein. And anyway, but she had to forgive the FDA for the advice that led her to being overweight, overeating, not being healthy. So we started my session, and I'll talk about later. So one of the key things why I went for it is I realized there was a sense of like unworthiness, not feeling good enough, or being like an outsider. Yes, like there being something wrong with me being me. And I had like a lot of improvements and like healing through certain aspects of that, embracing things that had been part of me not feeling like that was a good enough thing, embracing my hair, embracing my name, things like that. But it led me to remembering a situation where I had come over from Zambia, moved to England, and I really, really, really wanted to tell these children about my life before, and to say like we eat with our hands. We were having lunch and we probably had like knives and forks or something, and to tell them about the types of food that I eat as well. I was like, I really wanted to tell them like we eat this thing called sema, and it's like maize, and it's like, anyway, I wanted to tell them about my life before, and I just couldn't. Like it was like I could not speak, and I was just really quiet, and I just didn't talk. And I always remember wanting to tell children and tell them stuff and basically, have friends and talk. I couldn't. It was just really hard. And I realized that I'd moved to England 3 times, and each time I had a similar thing. So then we moved to Wales, which is where my dad's from, and then we moved to England. And again, I had a period of retreating into myself, of not really speaking much to people. I really, really talked to a girl called Claire who approached me, who was really friendly, and a lot of the class had never heard me speak. So one day, there was a boy being really annoying, saying something annoying, and I just like replied to him like blah blah blah, and then he was like, "Oh my gosh, she can talk! Like she can talk!" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I can talk. Duh, like of course I can talk. I just didn't want to talk before." But yeah, I didn't barely talk. Like they were all so shocked. They were all talking about it. And then again, I moved back to England when I was like 12, 13. And again, I went into a period of like being super reserved and like not really talk again, only really talked to the 3 girls that were like on my table and the table behind me. And I didn't really talk to much of the other children, even though I actually had known them like from 7 years old when we moved the first time. And I'd only been away for 2 years, but it was like, I just went back in my shell, really introverted and shy. And then the teachers would always put that in my report, like, oh, she needs to come out of her shell. So I noticed, so this thing helped me notice like there was a bit of a pattern here, like going into my shell, being really quiet, not really speaking up, not sharing like things I want to share. And guess what? That has been a theme that's been through my adult life, and there's been different areas where I've not spoken up, where I wanted to speak up, where I've not shared my voice, or like when I say voice, shared my story, shared the things that matter. So that stopped me from really making all the progress I'd like in different areas. And like I have made progress. Some areas I've made a lot more than others, and in some areas of it's felt like a real battle. And that's why I really wanted to start uncovering what's going on underneath, because I think I underplayed the importance of mindset early on in my sort of like designing my life journey. And I thought it was all about getting strategies and getting courses and learning and all of that. Until I started to realize like I was not implementing things. So I've really been digging into mindset these last couple of years and journaling, especially journaling, and being curious and questioning, looking at what I'm thinking. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Why haven't I made the progress I thought I would make in this area? What's going on? What's going on underneath? What's going on subconsciously that I'm not even really aware of it? Like, let me really be curious and dig into it. So that's why I ended up doing this RMR session. So like I said, 3 times moved to England, quiet, reserved, don't speak out, don't share, it put hiding away, basically hiding, but hiding. So we were talking about it, and I think just realized it must have been a very traumatic experience leaving what had been the only home country that I'd known at that point. I had come to the UK as a baby, and I'd gone to see my dad's family as a baby, but I don't remember that because I was a baby. So I was thinking, like, what was it like for that 5-year-old leaving, being in one country, going to this other country, one culture to a very different culture, one type of weather climate to a very different weather climate, one kind of environment where things, like lots of space and, soil and the kind of like dry grasses and bushy, the leaves and the flowers and everything, to another one where it's so different. And it must have been traumatic, because I don't like to use the word too much, because in my head I'm like, I used to think, oh, that's like people who've gone through really bad stuff, like terrible people, parents who've like hurt them and abused them, or and I just never felt like my stuff was ever on that level. But I've now started to realize that things cause trauma to people that don't seem that bad, but for whatever reason, it does affect a child so severely that it affects them even as a grown up. So that's why I'm going to use the word trauma, but it must have affected me so much. There was something that happened where it was just like, whoa, like to my nervous system, like you were here with like lots of people and the community and people that lived with you. It wasn't just my parents that lived with me. It was like other people lived with us, and people would always visit, and family were visiting, and there was just a lot of people and community. And then coming to England, and then it just being the 5 of us in the house, and now we're just starting again, and we don't know anyone, and then it's a slightly different culture here. It is more like people on their own, and the community aspect's not the same as it was in Zambia. So that must have been like a shock to my body, to this 5-year-old, and then to be like here, and then it's like I'm pulled away from my family, I'm pulled away from the food that I know, I'm pulled away from everything familiar, and all of that must have just been so much for me to process. And basically what I sort of came up with through this was it must have affected it just made me feel like this is not a safe place to be. This isn't, I must have come to see somehow subconsciously like England equals bad stuff, negative feelings, being away from family, being away from everything I know, different food, not speaking, where my mum said I was really chatty, bubbly before and talked to all sorts of people. So somehow there must have been like that message into my subconscious, to my body, nervous system, like you're not safe here. It's bad things happen here, negative emotions, even though I've gone on, have had what I say is a good life here, but the logical mind doesn't think about like, you did go and make friends, and you had a nice house and all these things, and learn, good education, blah blah. Your subconscious mind is just remembering when you're 5 and just a shock to your body. So we realized that I had to forgive England, and like it was just so weird. She's like, do you feel like you need to forgive England? And I laughed, but as she said it was just like, yes. I have seen it as a place that this was not home. I was not I'm not, I can't thrive here. Like, this is not home. This is not my place. This is not where I belong. All of that. And I had never vocalized it. I'd never really thought of it in any of those ways. And in this session, we realized like that was all these things going on. And being you're an outsider. You're not good enough. You need, be reserved and pulling away, not sharing stuff. All of that was linked with this stuff. So we read out a prayer where I would go for England, and there's like set things that you pray over, and then it was like you embrace a new truth. And like for me, I prayed and listened to like what was God saying to me, what was God saying was true. And for me, I embraced that this is my home and this is where I belong and I can thrive here. And just jokey stuff like I would never support England. Like I would always support the opposite team on this that they were playing, like in football, whatever it was. Really, why I got interrupted because my children came back from being away for a week. So trying to remember what I was saying now. Yeah. So I chose a new belief, and for me, I prayed, and it was like, what do I feel like God's saying to me? And that was, I guess, a new story, new belief, and that this is my home. I belong here. I can thrive here. And I told my kids that I was going to start supporting England. But yeah, afterwards, it's like then you're also thinking about the session and thinking a bit more. And then I realized, yes, I'd not really felt like this was my place, and the sense of hiding and sense of not fully being myself and fully expressing myself here. So it was really a powerful experience, transformative, and definitely I feel like even since then I kind of been sharing more of the things I really want to share. So I definitely think if you come across something like that do it. And even just journaling, and when you're facing something like something you find yourself stuck over and over with something, ask yourself, what's going on here? What's going on deeper? What feelings are coming up? Like, what am I feeling in my body? Like, what, like, is it like my tummy feels like butterflies, or my breathing shallow? And just notice what's going on in your body, and then try and see what you're thinking. Like, what's the belief that there must be there that is stopping me from doing this thing and sharing that, creating this product, starting this business, putting those boundaries place in my relationship, standing up for yourself in the workplace, whatever it is. And then what am I believing? And where did I get that idea from? Where did I get that belief from? What's happened in life where I started to believe that this thing is true? And really just look back and try and think of all these different things that have happened that could be part of you believing this lie, this thing that's not true, and it's not helpful to you because it's not helping you get to your goals. Maybe it helped you at that moment because you pulled back and you couldn't be judged or criticized for being different because you didn't share anything. No one knew who you were, so it was safe to hide away. So and then I'm thinking, okay, what would I like to believe instead? Like, what's true about this? So if you have a belief in a creator, you can sort of sit and think and ask, like, what is actually true about this? What do you say about this situation that happened to me? Because I know you didn't want me to be in it, and that wasn't you. And what you say to me is like, yeah, that you had your arms around me, you loved me, and you were there with me, even those tough times. And this is my home, and I can thrive here. And you placed me here on purpose. Like, I'm not here by accident. I'm not in England by accident. God put me here. So you can ask your, higher power, your God, hey, what is true about this? What do you want me to know about this situation? And then if you don't have one, you can just think, okay, what would I like to believe? What would be a more empowering thought story that is actually going to take me where I want to go? Going to serve me as I go after my goals. So I hope that's helped. And I always like to hear someone's actual personal experience about something, because I don't know, I relate to stories because I can see myself in them. I can understand, like, oh, okay, I get how that works. Like, you're over here not making a course or a product, and you're thinking like you need some more strategy, you need some more prompts from chat GPT on like how to launch a course or whatever it is, and there's actually always deep things going on, and it's the mindset, the beliefs, the subconscious stuff, that's what's really moving, that's what's really directing us. So I hope just hearing that you can relate it to like your own things and figure some stuff out, and hopefully start to process and heal from it, and do something, go through some of these journal prompts that I just mentioned, and start to feel better and see yourself move forward in life. So I hope that's been helpful. And if you do want to figure out what do you want to do in life, and what vision do I have for my life, and where do I see myself in 10 years, and how can I share my values in my work or my career or business or all of that stuff, then I've got a course called Design Your Dreams, and I will put the link in the description or the notes. Thank you for watching or listening, and I'd love you to share what you got out of it and just how it relates to things that you've gone through. I'd love to hear your stories and your experiences as well.